Hello, everyone. This is the CircuitPython weekly meeting for Monday, April 13th, 2026. It's the week where we get together to talk about all things CircuitPython. I'm Dan, and I'm sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a version of Python designed to run on tiny computers called microcontrollers. CircuitPython development is primarily sponsored by Adafruit. So if you want to support Adafruit and CircuitPython, consider purchasing hardware from Adafruit.com. This meeting is hosted on the Adafruit Discord server. You can join anytime by going to adafru.it/discord. We hold the meeting in the CircuitPython dev text channel and the CircuitPython voice channel. This meeting typically happens on Mondays at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time, except when it coincides with the U.S. holiday. In the notes doc, which I'll talk about in a minute, there's a link to a calendar you can view online or add to your favorite calendar app. We also send notifications about upcoming meetings via Discord. If you would like to receive these notifications, ask us to add you to the @CircuitPythonista's Discord role. There's a shared notes document that accompanies the meeting and recording. You can contribute to this document beforehand. The final notes document includes timestamps to go along with the video, so you can use the doc to skip around the parts of the video that interest you most. The meeting tends to run 30 to 60 minutes. After each meeting, we post a link for the next meeting's notes document to the CircuitPython dev channel on the Adafruit Discord. Check the pinned messages to find the latest notes doc, so you can add your notes for the following meeting. If you wish to participate but cannot attend, you can leave hug reports and status updates in the document for us to read during the meeting. This meeting is held in 5 parts, and I'll describe each part as we get to them. So with that, let's get started with community news. Get a timestamp here. These are items about things in the news that were related to CircuitPython, MicroPython, or in general, Python and microcontrollers. So first item we've got here is that MicroPython version 1.28.0 is out. There's a link to that in the Adafruit blog. This release includes machine.pwm support for the STM32 and Aleph ports. A new machine.can implementation is also available in this release. And this release also sees the addition of template strings as per PEP 750. That's a Python edition request. An outline of MicroPython's design values has also been added to the main README file. So check this out. This just came out. I'm in the middle of merging MicroPython 1.7, so we'll get to 1.28 after a little while to make sure that there aren't any things we might want to wait for until if there's any churn or something like that. All right, let's move on. Next item is RAM prices are threatening the viability of the Raspberry Pi and single-board computing. The whole point of single-board computers was their affordability. Raspberry Pi in particular describes its mission as, quote, putting high-performance, low-cost, general-purpose computing platforms in the hands of enthusiasts and engineers all over the world. And there's a link to a Gizmodo article about this. You can see what's going on. The price of a well-equipped Raspberry Pi 5 is over $100 now, quite a bit more maybe, and that sort of gets in the way of these things being inexpensive computers. So read that article, and there's a related article also in the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter, which I'll talk to you about in a few minutes. All right, next up is an MCP server for MicroPython. There's been a growing trend to connect large language models to various tools and systems. Physical devices like microcontrollers can become quite interesting when running LLMs with attached hardware. So Yusuke Sasaki has implemented an MCP server that allows direct code execution from an LLM on a board running MicroPython. So there's some links to this. Note it's in Japanese, but you can certainly get a translator, an automatic translator to make sense of this for you. And finally, another interesting thing is find packages with MIM. So this is a new package manager for use with MicroPython. It's called MIM by Corella Creations. There's a link to it. It's checkmim.com. It lists libraries and a quick search feature. Also provides MIP and MP remote commands to install each library. So check that out. It may make handling MicroPython packages easier for you. So where did all this news come from? It came from the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter, which is published weekly, edited by Anne. Our archives, there's a link to the archives. You can sign up. If you sign up, you only get that. There's no other something that comes with that. So check it out. If you'd like to contribute something, we'd really appreciate it. Just email cpnews@adafruit.com about your project or some news you've seen, whatever. We appreciate whatever your contributions are. Thank you. All right. Our next major section is the state of CircuitPython, the libraries, and Blinka. So this is a quantitative overview of the entire project. It gives us a chance to look at the health of the project separate from our status updates. So first, we'll talk about the CircuitPython project overall, and then separately discuss the core, the libraries, and Blinka. Okay, so overall, in the past week, we've had 9 pull requests merged by 6 authors. Notably, I haven't seen the name Chris Norse as a contributor, or not recently, maybe. So thank you, Chris. And there were 5 reviewers of those 9 pull requests. There were 4 issues closed by 3 people and 6 issues opened by 6 people across the whole project. And now, next up, we can hear about the CircuitPython core, if Scott is available to talk about that.
Yes, sorry, I was finding my window. Okay, for the core, we had 6 pull requests merged from 3 different authors, Foamy Guy, myself, and Chris Norris. 2 reviewers as well, Dan and myself. At the time the stats were pulled, we had 27 open pull requests, which is a couple more than our goal of a single page of 25. But I believe we are under that now. We're close. So no worries there. Issues-wise, in that past week, we had 0 closed issues by 0 people and 4 open by 4 people. So we're now up 4. A little bit more than we'd like to, but getting some good issues coming in, and I'm sure we'll get through those. We had 858 open issues, and we prioritized those for Adafruit-funded folks using the milestone system. We have 4 open issues on 10.1x and 1 issue open on 10.2. Those are kind of like the highest priority ones that we probably want to look at before I think we're going to do a release candidate of 10.2. We also have 1 issue not assigned to milestone, but I think we've gone through that, done a pass before or after these stats were taken as well. So we're keeping up. We're not in the tens of issues not assigned to milestones. We're keeping up with those things. So things are good in the core. And Dan, you're muted on our end.
Oops. Okay. Thank you, Scott. So next up, we'll talk about CircuitPython libraries from Tim.
All right. Thanks, Dan. This section does cover all of the CircuitPython libraries, which are hosted on GitHub. They are separated into 2 different bundles. We have an Adafruit library bundle with 392 libraries in that one currently, and we have a community library bundle with libraries contributed by third parties. That one is at 177 libraries right now for a total of 569 total libraries that support CircuitPython across both of those bundles. Over the past week or so in the Adafruit bundle, we've had 2 pull requests merged. by 2 different authors, thanks to Tektrick and Brent. We had 2 reviewers, thanks to Lady Ada and myself. Of the pull requests that were merged, we had one at a little over 2 weeks. It was 18 days. That was the oldest one, and the newest one was open for 6 days. We had no brand new ones closed off this week. That leaves us right now with 37 pull requests that are open. The oldest one of those is still hanging on. It's up there at 1,334 days. It is a draft in one of the libraries. I forget which one. The newest one is 1 day. Issues-wise, we had 2 issues closed by 2 people. 1 new issue opened up by 1 person. That leaves us with 771 issues open across all those libraries in the Adafruit bundle. And there are 2 of them right now that are labeled as good first issues. You can find those 2 as well as the rest listed at circuitpython.org/contributing, which is the website where you should head if you're interested in getting involved in the CircuitPython project. On that website, circuitpython.org/contributing is the URL. What you will see when you load it up is a list of links to pull requests over to GitHub. And the first place that we tend to point folks who want to get involved but don't have a specific idea of what they want to work on is reviewing these PRs. So you can kind of take a stroll through that list, find something that's interesting to you or something that you've got the hardware for. You can click through to GitHub, read up on what the pull request is. That's going to be a proposed change, either adding a new feature or fixing some bug or something, and you can review that PR. You can take a look at the code for spelling, syntax, logic errors, anything like that. If you do have the hardware for it, you can test it out on hardware and then just leave a comment there on GitHub letting us know what you found when you looked over the code, if you were able to test it, what you found when you tested it. Did it work as expected? Did you have trouble? If you were able to test it, be sure to leave, version information, what device were you using, what version of CircuitPython, all those technical details. If you get comfortable with that process, we can also add you to the review team that we use on GitHub so that you get kind of notifications of new things that need reviewed and stuff like that. Makes it easier to find stuff to look at. If you would like to start getting your hands dirty contributing some code of your own, you can also do that from the same website. If you look up near the top, there will be a navigation bar on that contributing page. If you click over to issues, you'll get a page that looks visually the same. It's a big list of links over to GitHub, but these ones represent issues. They have no proposed change yet, so they're waiting for a person who is interested in coding up either a fix to a bug or a new feature, new example, something like that, and submitting a PR with that change. So you can do that as well. We do have guides on the process of contributing to CircuitPython using Git and GitHub. We also have folks who are available here on the Discord who are more than happy to help you out. So if you're having trouble reviewing, or if you're having trouble contributing your own PR with the actions, version control, or anything like that, just come say hi on the Discord in the Help with CircuitPython channel. Let us know what you're up to, what kind of trouble you're having. We would be happy to help you out. We want everyone to be able to contribute in whatever way works best for them. And then looks like we have no library updates in the last 7 days this week. So I will pass it back to Dan.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I wasn't sure. There really is. It's not in the library report, so I don't know what that means. Whether that's a bug or it's just true. All right. Next up, we've got Blinka. So what is Blinka? It's our compatibility layer for CircuitPython code to run on single board computers like Raspberry Pi. So we're running CircuitPython code that has CircuitPython specific hardware stuff in it, but it's running on of CPython with a library to make a difference. And that library is called the Blinka library. So in the past week, there was 1 pull request merged by Maker Blinka. There are now 20 open pull requests. In the past week, there were 2 issues closed and 1 opened. There are now 96 open issues and 166 supported boards via the Blinka compatibility library. And that's it for Blinka. Our next major section is Hug Reports. This is a chance to highlight folks in the CircuitPython community and beyond for doing awesome things. I'll start, and then we'll go down the list of Hug Reports alphabetically by contributor. If you're text only or missing the meeting, I'll just read your notes when I get to them in the list. So first of all, I'll start, and thanks to Tim, Foamy Guy, for fixing a problem with the bundle failing to build. And I think you'll talk about that more in status updates. And next up is Tim.
All right, there we go. Thanks. Yes, so I have Hug Reports this week thanks to NIS on Discord for some more help during my stream over the weekend. This person has been pointing me to some good Zephyr resources while I'm streaming. Thanks to Anecdata as well for testing a fix that I submitted to the ICE2C target module for Raspberry Pi and reporting back. And that's what I've got. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And finally, we've got Scott to talk about his Hug Reports.
Thanks, Dan. First, hug to Foamy Guy for the I2C target fix. Hug to Drew the Ogre for the positive feedback on the USB IP bridge. Thanks to Bablock B for the Pimoroni board definition. And just wanted to point out, mlupo filed a good, helpful issue on the startup time changes after a deep sleep on the Espressif between versions 9 and 10. Really well documented, and I'm hoping I pointed them in the right direction. So thank you to those folks.
All right, thanks, Scott. All right, now next up, we've got status updates. This is our time to tell folks what we're up to individually. As before, I'll just go through the list of people, starting with me as host. And when I call on you, you can take a couple of minutes to talk about what you've been doing since the last meeting and what you'll be doing until the next meeting. So I'll start. So I've been working on merging Python version 1.27 into CircuitPython, and I submitted a draft PR after getting some build problems fixed. I'm now running into some issues running the Zephyr tests. It passed all the regular tests locally, so there's something odd going on with the Zephyr build, and I have to figure that out. And I will call on Scott also to look that over and see if he can make head or tails of that, because it's a little mysterious. After this is merged in, if there's some other easy things we'll merge in, but our general idea is to get a CircuitPython 10.2.0 release candidate out as soon as possible after this. This is so that we can branch off of main, and so that main can start including some things that are more risky to include in a minor release. So we'll try to do that soon. It means that there are a bunch of bugs that we wanted to fix for 10.1 that won't be fixed immediately in 10.2.0, but basically we're doing a point release in time, and we'll still be working on those bugs. All right, and next up is Tim.
All right, thank you. Last week, I think I mentioned the guide I was working on, the using Raspberry Pi as a router guide. That was published the other day, so that's out there now. The next thing I've been working on was the driver for the MAX 44009, which is a very basic Lux sensor that is new to the store. I have the driver written, and the basic tests are working successfully on hardware. I am working on the guide next, and then I am going to go back and work on some of the hardware tests for this one. They were not passing for me the first time around, but I think it's more of an issue with the test than the driver itself. So I'm going to go through those, try to fix them up, and try to add a couple of them as well that validate various aspects of the driver. I did, like Dan mentioned, I looked into an issue that was ultimately inside of Adabot when it tries to run the bundle updates, which it does once a day inside of a GitHub action. There was an issue where if a library was, like if a repo has been deleted, then it causes trouble during this process. So if a repo that was in one of the bundles gets deleted, like the community bundle, someone just cleans up their old repo, they forget they added it, they don't want to use it anymore or whatever, this process can fail. And the way that it fails, it turns out inside of the actions, it kind of truncates the error message, which makes it a little bit difficult to tell what actually happened. So I did get to the bottom of it. I think we have it fixed in the community bundle, so tomorrow's build, when it runs automatically, should be good. If not, then I'll keep poking a bit further. And then I also made an issue to go back to Adabot and try to fix it to handle that situation more gracefully. to get it to hopefully populate the full error, so it's super easy to tell looking at the actions log what happened. So I will take a stab at that probably next week or the week after some of the rest of the stuff's done. I have been also doing a little bit of testing on some experiments with nullclaw running on a Raspberry Pi. This is like an alternative to OpenClaw, and PT from Adafruit is doing some work to kind of build up a database of Learn guides and CircuitPython libraries and other Adafruit assets into this bundle that a LLM running on a Pi 0 can, Pi 02W, I should say, can look up information from this database and try to like interact with hardware that's connected to it. So super cool stuff. Just in the beginning stages of working on that and testing it out now. I have been diving a bit more into the Zephyr port. I have last week I set up a container file and a couple of scripts for being able to build the native sim and run tests inside of it. That was helpful because it turns out there are some conflicts with 64-bit systems, at least in like Ubuntu 24.04. And so this lets us build the native sim and still run the tests without having any trouble on the host machine, which is nice. It also makes a nice like sort of repeatable setup thing, right? Because now you can just run these couple 2-3 commands and it kind of installs and does everything for you without you having to go through and set up each little thing. In terms of Zephyr as well, still in the Zephyr world, I haven't been kind of trying to pick off core modules that I can enable. So last week I enabled AES.io and Message Pack. Those are merged now. I have another local branch now with zlib and hashlib. Those are good to go. I think I have tests and everything, so I'll PR those soon. And then I also have a separate local branch with Adafruit Bus Device, the core implementation of that enabled, and I have manually tested it. It's good. But I need to chat a little bit, I think, with Scott about how to test that one automatically with the native sim before it will be actually ready. And then the other thing that I poked into was this a little I2C target issue on the Raspberry Pi port. This kind of started as I picked up a PR that was basically a good PR with a fix for something, but just had a change request for a quick like refactor the code a little bit. And this person hadn't had a chance to come back and do it yet, so I figured it'd be relatively easy to do. I did that, and then in the process of it, I found a link to a different issue with some test code. And this was test code that Anecdata submitted, I think, that was reporting this other problem with I2C target kind of breaking up the messages. So I went for a quick try at fixing that and was able to hammer it out pretty easily with the help of Claude. So I just kind of combined those together, a couple of fixes for I2C target on the Raspberry Pi port, and submitted that as well. It's not specific to Zephyr, but I was kind of just poking through core PRs to see if there's any I could clean up, and that one worked out pretty well. So that is what I've been up to. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Okay. And finally, we've got Scott to talk about what he's been up to.
Hello. So Tim, for the Adafruit bus device, I would just look at the I2C test in NativeSim, where there's basically C code that pretends to be an AT24 EEPROM that you can talk to. And so you can just do that via bus device and hopefully it works. Myself, I'm still heads down on mostly this USB IP bridge work stuff. So aiming to get an ESP32P4 as like a USB host device that's that you talk to via the network. And then you can load code and run tests kind of self-contained to that host P4. My goal is to get hardware in the loop testing going. So in the very much the same way that the native sim tests work, but actually on hardware. So like you can give it a code.py file to run and then test that it worked. It's just like testing is a bottleneck because it's so easy to generate code and fixes that it just makes a ton of sense to get hardware in the loop testing going. For example, like with my IDF6 update, I changed proto-matter and I need to test with an RGB matrix, but RGB matrices are just receiving signals, so I could actually capture those signals and then validate that they're correct without ever having to actually have an RGB matrix, and then we could ensure that it keeps working and make sure easily that it works across a bunch of boards all at the same time, as long as we had that ability to just capture their output. So it just makes so much sense in this world that it's easy to generate code. The testing is the bottleneck and the reviewing, but the testing is a huge part of it. So yeah, I'm looking at that this week, both the USB IP stuff and thinking about like basic logic capture using the P4 as well, which is going to be interesting in and of itself. So that's what I'm working on.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Okay. So that's it for status updates. Our next section is in the weeds, but we haven't got any discussion topics right now. In the weeds is where we normally have a longer discussion about somebody wants to bring up a topic, isn't sure how to proceed, or wants to call our attention to something or whatever. So if you got one, always feel free to add one. So with that, we'll wrap up for the week. The next meeting will be next week on Monday, April 20th at the same time as this week. So get your notes in, and we'll remind anybody who's subscribed to @CircuitPythonistas about it on that day. So remember, if you want to support Adafruit and CircuitPython, consider purchasing from the Adafruit shop at adafruit.com. We'll release this meeting on YouTube at youtube.com/Adafruit, and the podcast will be available on major podcast services. There will also be links to this meeting in the next Python for Microcontrollers newsletter. You can visit adafruitdaily.com to subscribe. And that's it. Thanks, everyone, and I'll stop recording.